The morning began with the kind of silence that feels wrong, the kind that feels heavy, stolen, and unfamiliar. Jacob Miller wasn't the type of man who panicked easily, but the moment he opened his eyes and realized a woman, confused, startled, and very much naked beneath the tangled hotel sheets, was pressed against him, his heart stuttered hard enough to steal his breath. He wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to be here. And the unmistakable shock in her wide, dark eyes told him she was thinking the exact same thing. For a long, suspended moment, neither of them moved, both clutching the blankets to their chests like shields, frozen between disbelief and fear. And in that surreal silence, the reality hit him like a train. This wasn't just any woman. Even in her panic, even with her hair messy and her face pale, he recognized her. Everyone did. She was the CEO whose face was plastered on magazines, the corporate powerhouse who commanded rooms and companies with a single decisive look. And now she was waking up naked beside a single dad who could barely afford rent. If you believe that kindness, second chances, and unexpected miracles can change a life, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Jacob's head throbbed as pieces of the previous night drifted back like shards of broken glass. He had only been at the hotel because his 10-year-old son, Caleb, had insisted they go to the city's annual charity gala together. What Jacob didn't expect was to feel so out of place among shimmering gowns, diamonds, and executives discussing world-changing deals. He was a mechanic, a man who worked double shifts just to keep the lights on, a man who had promised his son things he was never quite sure he could deliver. He hadn't planned to drink. He hadn't planned anything at all. But then the CEO, Ava Sinclair, had stumbled away from a crowd of flashing cameras and suffocating expectations, looking for fresh air. He remembered offering her a seat. He remembered her admitting she felt like she was drowning in a world she'd built with her own hands. He remembered both of them laughing at the absurdity of life, two strangers from opposite worlds clinging to the same feeling of being overwhelmed. The rest was blurry. A mixture of exhaustion, too many emotions, and two people who hadn't realized how lonely they were until they stopped pretending. Now she looked at him with her hands trembling, her lips parted as if she wanted to apologize, but no words came. Her eyes darted down at the suit jacket tossed near the edge of the bed, then at a single abandoned shoe on the carpet. Her breathing hitched. She clutched the blanket tighter. Jacob could see the humiliation on her face, the fear, not of him, but of what this meant for her. He wanted to tell her nothing happened, that they hadn't crossed a line, that the careful distance of the blankets suggested they had simply fallen asleep next to each other after an emotionally draining night. But he didn't trust his voice yet. He didn't trust anything in that room. And Ava looked like she was one breath away from spiraling. Jacob stood slowly, careful not to startle her, and bundled his clothes under one arm. He told her she was safe, that whatever last night had been, it didn't define either of them. She stared for a long moment, her expression softening with something like relief, then something much deeper, much more vulnerable. And that vulnerability stayed in Jacob's mind long after he left the room. The next days were a whirlwind he didn't see coming. Jacob returned to the noisy garage where he worked, wiping grease off his hands while trying desperately to forget the surreal encounter. Meanwhile, Ava Sinclair's face appeared on every business headline, her perfectly polished image untouched by the fragile moment she shared with a stranger. He didn't expect to ever see her again. People like Ava didn't cross into his world twice. But life, he would soon learn, was full of strange twists. It happened one rainy afternoon. Caleb had fallen during school recess and scraped his knee badly. The school nurse called and Jacob rushed from work only to find his son shaking, not from pain but from embarrassment. Caleb was small for his age and got teased often. Jacob lifted him gently, carrying him through the school hallway, promising him ice cream and bandages and a movie marathon. And that was when he saw her, Ava Sinclair, standing near the entrance, umbrella dripping, talking softly to a school administrator. She looked different. Less untouchable, more human, as if the world outside had finally worn her edges down. When their eyes met, both froze. Caleb stared between them, confused, and in that quiet pause Ava did something unexpected. She smiled. Not the polished, rehearsed smile from magazine covers, but a warm, almost hesitant smile that made Jacob's chest tighten. She walked toward them slowly, asking if Caleb was okay, her voice gentler than Jacob remembered. What stunned him most wasn't that she recognized him, but that she seemed relieved to see him. They ended up talking outside, rain falling softly around them. Ava admitted she had been thinking about that night far more than she should have. She confessed she had felt safe with him in a way she rarely felt with anyone. And Jacob, who had convinced himself their connection was nothing more than an accident, felt something shift deep inside him. For the first time in years, someone saw him. Not just as a struggling father or mechanic, but as a man worth noticing. What followed wasn't a whirlwind romance or some fairy tale transformation. It was slow, soft, real. Ava began visiting the garage under the pretense of needing car repairs, something Jacob politely pointed out made no sense, considering her fleet of company drivers. Still, she kept coming, bringing coffee, asking questions about engines she clearly didn't understand just so she could listen to him talk. Jacob found himself looking forward to those moments, her presence a quiet warmth that seeped into the cold edges of his life. Caleb adored her. She listened to him like his thoughts mattered. She asked about his drawings, his science projects, his dream of becoming an astronaut, and she kept every promise she made to him, something Jacob noticed with a mixture of awe and fear. He didn't want to rely on her. He didn't want to let her into their small world, only for her to leave when things got complicated. But Ava stayed, and when she admitted one evening that she had never wanted children because she feared she would fail them, Jacob realized just how deeply she doubted her own worth. Behind her success was a lifetime of pressure, loneliness, and walls she had built to protect herself, and slowly, piece by piece, he watched those walls crumble, not with grand gestures, but with small moments. The way she laughed without covering her mouth, the way she cried during a movie and didn't apologize, the way she let Caleb hold her hand, the way she looked at Jacob like he was her anchor in a storm she had pretended didn't exist. But life never allows happiness to grow without testing it. One morning, headlines exploded with Ava's name. Someone had leaked photos, grainy images of her entering the charity gala with Jacob standing in the background, plus a misleading article claiming she was having an inappropriate affair with a mysterious hotel companion. The truth wasn't even relevant to the world that devoured scandal like oxygen. Ava's board demanded explanations, investors panicked, her carefully constructed empire trembled. Jacob saw the fear in her eyes when she arrived at his house that evening. Fear that her life was collapsing, fear that she had dragged him into a mess he never asked for. She told him she would fix it, that she would distance herself until things settled, that she couldn't risk his stability, or Caleb's well-being. It broke her to say it. It broke him to hear it, but Jacob understood. And that hurt most of all. Ava disappeared from his life for 3 weeks. Caleb asked about her every day. Jacob didn't have the heart to explain why someone who cared so deeply suddenly vanished. He hated himself for hoping she would come back. He hated that his chest felt hollow without her laughter echoing through their small living room. Then one night, as Jacob tucked Caleb into bed, there was a knock at the door. When he opened it, Ava was there, soaked from rain, trembling, and holding a crumpled newspaper. She whispered that she couldn't do it. She couldn't keep pretending that walking away would fix anything. She had spent her whole life sacrificing pieces of herself to meet the world's expectations. And when she finally found something real, something that felt like home, fear had told her to let it go. Jacob didn't say anything. He simply stepped aside, letting her into the warmth of the house. And Ava, who had built entire corporations with sheer determination, broke down in his arms. Not because she was weak, but because she had carried the world alone for too long. From that night on, she didn't leave. It wasn't easy. Her reputation took time to recover. People talked. Critics speculated. But Ava ignored them. She showed up at school events with Jacob and Caleb. She helped Jacob repair old cars in the garage, laughing when she accidentally dropped tools. She learned to cook with Caleb's supervision, burning meals until the smoke alarm became a household soundtrack. And slowly, their 3 separate lives wove into one. What surprised Jacob most wasn't how much Ava changed. It was how much she blossomed. How much lighter she became when she allowed herself rest. Love, family. She still led board meetings and signed deals, but now she also helped Caleb with homework and kissed Jacob goodnight with unguarded tenderness. She no longer lived like every moment was a battlefield. She lived like every moment was a gift. Months passed, and one crisp autumn evening, as they sat on the porch watching Caleb chase fireflies, Jacob realized something profound. The woman who once woke up terrified in his arms had become the person he trusted most, and he had become her safe place, not because he was extraordinary, but because he offered what she had been denied her whole life: kindness, honesty, quiet stability, and love without conditions. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us create more stories like this.